For the record, I just want to mention the announcement that went out earlier today concerning our friend Filippo Grandi, the High Commissioner for Refugees, following the recommendations of the Secretary General. After consultations with member states, the General Assembly confirmed that Filippo Grandi of Italy as High Commissioner for Refugees for a further 2.5-year term beginning on July 1st, 2023 and ending on 31 December 2025. As you know, Mr. Grandi is serving his first 2.5-year period from his second term as High Commissioner, and we congratulate him. This morning, Markus Potzel, the Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General for Afghanistan, briefed the Security Council on the situation in that country, warning that if Taliban continue failing to uphold the rights of all Afghans to engage constructively with the international community, the country's future is uncertain, and fragmentation, isolation, poverty, and internal conflict likely scenarios. Mr. Potzel said the ongoing ban on secondary education for girls and growing restrictions on women's rights are signals that the Taliban are indifferent to more than 50% of the population and are willing to risk international isolation. He added that to date, the 2022 humanitarian response plan has only received $1.9 billion out of the $4.4 billion required. He said that amid growing needs and worsening food situation, a funding gap is all the more alarming, given that winter is almost upon us. And this afternoon at 3 o'clock, there will be an open briefing on Ukraine. The Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, will brief. We hope to have those remarks to be shared with you under embargo prior to 3 o'clock. Also want to flag that the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the Joint Coordination Center of the Black Sea Grain Initiative announced today that we've reached the 5 million metric ton mark of grain and other foodstuff exported from 3 Ukrainian ports. And as of today, 5,250,578 metric tons have been exported, which is good news. Moving on to Haiti, where our humanitarian colleagues are warning us that life-saving health services risk coming to a standstill due to the current crisis. After almost 2 weeks of complete blockade, the country's main fuel entry point, water distribution, is seriously compromised, and health facilities are running dangerously low on fuel. Some hospitals are unable to admit patients and are preparing to close. Many hospitals are experiencing a shortage of oxygen. The World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization are also working with health authorities and partners to refurbish emergency medical services at one major public hospital. They're also providing medical supplies alongside the UN Population Fund to 2 public hospitals in Port-au-Prince. UNICEF and UNFPA, for their part, have also collaborated with hospitals, health authorities, and partners to install solar power supplies. However, solar power is insufficient to keep hospitals fully functioning. UNICEF estimates that 22,000 children under the age of 5 and over 28,000 newborns are at risk of not receiving essential health care services for the next 4 weeks. And the current access situation also raises concerns about the precarious situation in the 36 sites for internally displaced people in Haiti. The sites host more than 24,000 people displaced by last year's earthquake in the south and by the recent gang violence in Port-au-Prince. Our colleagues on the ground are concerned about reports of widespread sexual violence, rape, and gender-based violence. Haiti's humanitarian response remains seriously underfunded despite increasing needs. As of today, we've received only a third of the funding required for the country's $373 million humanitarian plan for 2022. And yesterday afternoon, you will have heard, along with council members, a briefing on the political situation from the head of the mission there, Helen Lalime. And staying in the Caribbean, in Cuba, as you will have seen, Hurricane Ian made direct landfall in the western part of the country as a Category 3 hurricane. The UN team in Cuba is working with authorities to identify possible scenarios and specific needs to be supported. And of course, we express our solidarity with the people of Cuba. And we'll give you more information as we get it. And turning to Pakistan, the outbreaks of vector-borne and waterborne diseases are growing concerns in Sindh and Balochistan provinces, where many districts remain inundated by floodwaters. The floods have also damaged nearly 1,500 health facilities across the country, including more than 300 refrigerators and solar power systems, which is disrupting the vaccine cold chain. Assessments are continuing, but an estimated 7.9 million people remain displaced by catastrophic floods. Nearly 600,000 people are living in relief camps, and more than 7,000 schools across Pakistan are being used as temporary relief camps. More than 2 million households have been damaged by the heavy rains and floods, and more than 25,000 schools and 13,000 kilometers of roads have reportedly been damaged. We and our humanitarian partners are continuing to scale up our response and have reached more than 1.6 million people in different areas who've been impacted by the floods. Quick update from Cabo Verde, where the team led by resident coordinator Ana Patricia Graxa have been stepping up efforts to support authorities to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Across 3 islands, we've supported the creation of 1,000 jobs in 24 rural communities. For its part, the FAO supported the reforestation of 1,000 hectares of land through a 4-year program funded by the EU, which has just concluded with innovative private-public investments. We're also helping install solar parks and supply electricity to a water desalination plant, benefiting more than 11,000 people on 2 islands. This is the result of just one of the nearly 30 initiatives bringing clean energy and water, supported by the UN Industrial Development Organization and funded by the Global Environment Facilities. For its part, the UN Office of Drugs and Crime and UN Habitat are also supporting 7,000 people in vulnerable communities with access to design and rebuild inclusive public spaces. Today is World Tourism Day. Ooh. In his message, the Secretary General notes that tourism is the power to foster inclusion, protect nature, and promote cultural understanding. He calls on the countries to invest in clean and sustainable tourism, lowering the sector's energy consumption, adapting to zero-emission pathways, and protecting biodiversity. And tomorrow, my guest will be Francesca Spatolisano, the Assistant Secretary General for Policy Coordination in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. She will be joined by Vincenzo Acquaro, the Chief of the Digital Government Branch, Division of Public Institutions, and Digital Government in DESA. They'll brief you on the 2022 edition of the UN e-Government Survey, the future of digital government. The survey will reveal the digital government ranking, measuring the scope and quality of online services, the status of telecommunications infrastructure, and existing human capacity. Also, programming note, Tor Venezuela is expected to brief the Security Council during a regularly scheduled briefing on the situation regarding the Middle East peace process, and Mr. Venezuela will likely be at the stakeout to answer your questions afterwards. Edie, before we have to rewind the tape again.
Thank you, Steph. Does the Secretary General have any comment on the conclusion of referendums in 4 Russian-controlled areas in Ukraine today?
The Secretary General's position today is the same as it was yesterday, and the same as it was when he briefed the Council on it last week, expressing his deep concern about what he called the so-called referenda. But you will get more from Ms. DiCarlo this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Yep, James.
First, on the NASA operation to hit the asteroid, was the UN consulted? You have a UN office for outer space. I mean, was NASA doing this on its own, or did it consult the UN on whether it was a sensible thing to do?
That's a very, all humor apart, it's a very good question. We'll check with our colleagues in the Office of Outer Space Affairs.
He just wanted you to say that.
What?
He just wanted you to say that.
It's pretty easy to get me to say stuff.
The Safa tanker, new report out by Greenpeace, I don't know if you've seen it, which talks about some of the large multinational oil companies which were using that until 2015, Exxon, OMV, Total Energies, among others. Does the UN believe that, with the publication of these details of exactly who that oil might technically belong to that's in the tanker, that these organizations have a responsibility for that oil and to help the UN with this operation?
I think we will welcome contributions from these companies for that specific project. Yes, madam.
Steph, on the referenda, has the Secretary General spoken with President Putin again, or does he plan to? Does he feel like he needs to? Thanks.
There's been no new conversation with President Putin than the one he mentioned, but obviously contacts remain at many different levels. Yep.
Thank you. I want to ask about the UN reform. So it's basically everyone's talking about it, but nobody talks how to do it. And I want to ask the Secretary General's opinion, because in this April, when he was in Ukraine, Russia bombed Kiev, right, like several blocks from the place where he was speaking. Has that changed his vision on UN in some way? What?
I mean, I think to go back to that episode in Kiev, I was with him. I don't think anyone was surprised that in the capital of a country involved in a war, there would have been some sort of bombing. The Secretary General did not take that personally. On the issue of UN reform, I mean, the Secretary General has spoken about the need for Security Council reform in many different fora, really since he became Secretary General. But at the end of the day, whatever any Secretary General say, the decision on how to reform the Security Council, how to change its makeup, how to make it more reflective of the world that we live in, and how to make it a better instrument for the maintenance of peace and security, is one that is the member states themselves have to agree to. Yep.
Thank you, Stéphane. I'm Natalia Lutsenko, ICTV station Ukraine. What is the position and message from Secretary General on accusation of Larov at Security Council chamber, that he said that what happened in Kiev region in April, when it was under the siege by Russian troops, what happened is fake, and that people that were lying on the streets, that was a well-prepared scenario. Thank you.
I'm sorry, if you could take out the mask when you speak, because it's hard for me to understand. Sorry.
Yeah, so, again, what is the message from the Secretary General on the accusation of Lavrov, that he said during the Security Council chamber that what happened in Kiev region, in Bucha, that it's a fake, and that people that were lying on the streets, that's a well-prepared scenario?
Well, I mean, the Secretary General was in Bucha, and I would refer you to what he said when he was there. And as we know, there are a number of different UN entities that are collecting information, which we hope will lead to accountability. Madame.
Steph, OIOS team was due to arrive in the MINUSO HQ today. Do we know why and what they're going to investigate?
No.
That's your answer?
No, my answer, I don't mean to be flippant, my answer is that OIOS operates independently. They don't brief me on their travels and what they're doing. I have no visibility on their work on a day-to-day basis. Yep, and I'll come back to you.
Toshinaba from Kyoto News. Thank you. On the so-called referenda, we understand the position of the Secretary General, but can you tell me if there is any action he can take, like proposing to send a mission to investigate or verify the legitimacy of the referenda?
No, there is no plan for the UN to be involved in that way, shape, or form. Edward, please, sorry.
Hi, Steph. Just have a technical question because I discussed this with several colleagues. Today, during the Security Council meeting, the U.S. Representative, I believe, he said U.S. does not trust Taliban to use that 3.5 billion US dollars which got frozen. So is it possible that the United States can transfer that money to some kind of institution belong to the United Nations? The United Nations could defroze those money and use them to have more trust for the member states in Afghanistan.
I think those are discussions that need to be had, and I'll get back to you on that. Yeah. Edie?
Thank you, Steph. There have been ruptures in 2 gas pipelines in Europe, which some European nations and Ukraine say are sabotage by Russia. Does the Secretary General have any comment on these allegations and the fact that there were, I think, 3 ruptures in 2 days?
We've seen these press reports. We have obviously as the Secretariat, no way of verifying or investigating, no mandate to investigate. We do hope that whatever the reason behind those leaks, they get repaired, obviously for whatever ecological impact it could have, and also to ensure the greater flow of energy.
And one more question. Several of our colleagues have come down with COVID-19, as has the Prime Minister of Spain. Is the UN keeping any list to see whether UNGA became or is becoming any kind of a spreader or a super spreader event?
We have not, as far as I know, been informed of cases. I will check with our medical colleagues. I can tell you from the Secretary General's part, and he was extremely careful. All his meetings were masked. And he asked all the delegations to keep their masks on. It was done at the meeting room was set up with a pretty large distance between the two tables, and both he and and the staff and the people around him were tested. I think almost on a daily basis, if not just a little less. Benno.
But he shook a lot of hands, no?
Yes, and he did shake a lot of hands, and I can tell you that I have no doubt they went through quite a large volume of sanitizer. He is never far away from a bottle of psh, psh, as he calls it. Yeah. All right, on that note, Paulina, all yours.